Hello, everyone. My name is Joel Ivany, and it's wonderful that you are tuning in. Today is October the 1st, and we have a treat for you. But first, I just want to acknowledge that Against the Grain Theater is on Treaty 13, the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and it's now home to many diverse nations, Inuit and Métis people, and we're grateful to be able to share this land and be able to make art on it. And a huge thank you goes up to the Yukon Art Center as well, who are sponsoring this series from the director's chair. And I want to bring in a very special guest who you may or may not know, but the wonderful Fiona Shaw. Fiona, how are you?
I'm very well. I'm in London, so I'm talking to you from quite a distance, but I admire all your nations there, and I've enjoyed your beautiful countryside. So I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, thank you again for making time. We were just kind of chatting briefly that you were just on Zoom meetings previously, and you're doing a lot from home as well. But how are you? And how is the pandemic and COVID been for you for the last little bit?
I think, like a lot of people, I mean, if it's unified us at all, is that we've all been hit by the same terrors, the same very basic terrors. But the first few months were the summer, and we were lucky. I mean, the spring and summer. But I think now it's hitting very badly. We have had a rise here in England, and a rise is both unnecessary, psychologically very difficult because the winter months are coming. So we can't stay in the garden in the way we could. So we have to see less people than we could. And I think it's this incidental meeting of people that has been cut out of our lives, and the terrors of having to wear a mask most of the time. I'm amazed we're not wearing a mask even now. It's the only benefit of this screen, isn't it? Is that we don't wear a mask. And it has reduced us a lot. And that's supposed to be concerned about family, of course. My mother's 94. She lives in Ireland. I still can't go and see her because, I will going to I will have to take a house for 2 weeks elsewhere and then go and see her. All of this is where I'll have to travel, and which puts me in more danger of getting COVID. We're all in the same boat. So it's not been easy the last few weeks. But I'm about to go back to work to do a series that I was doing in Hungary in March when we were sent home, and we're finishing that locally. We're going to film it in England, not in Hungary. So at least I'm going to be in this part of the woods.
Well, that's kind of it as well. I know that the last 2 days I was out. I went actually went somewhere, and everyone had masks on for all day. I was kind of at a concert hall, and it was very odd because even talking to people, you don't really realize how much you depend on the lower for even just communicating. All of a sudden, the eye movement, you realize I was more aware of how much I look away from people and how much they either stare into your eyes, and without knowing if they're smiling or not, it can be a little disorienting.
You're smart, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's good to hear that you are getting back to work. When it comes to opera, I guess, people probably know you more specifically outside of opera, but you have this sort of world in opera as well. And I guess, how did you get into your love of opera, or where did that come from?
When my mother, as a child, my mother played the piano every night and sort of bangs out various tunes from operas, which is not a thing that made me love opera at all. On the contrary, it made me hate it. But it was in my ear. And she would sing lots of tunes from very famous operas. I mean, very basic things, The Merry Widow or whatever. But when I was, some of my friends were directing operas as I went through my 20s, 30s, and 40s, including my great friend Frida Lloyd, who did a wonderful dialogue of the Carmelites. And I could see the dramatic tragedy that I was pursuing at the time was absolutely in that opera. I befriended the great Peter Sellers, and I could see his political, commitment to opera. And when I was 50, weirdly, the English National Opera asked me, would I do Riders of the Sea by Vaughan Williams, which, as it happens, is set in Ireland, where I'm from, but from a part of Ireland that I knew nothing of. They may as well have set it in Canada. I had no idea of that area, but I went to these islands on the west coast of Ireland, to the Aran Islands, and began to learn about the people there, and then took this British composer and this Irish story got an Irish artist called Dorothy Cross, who's a wonderful Irish artist, and Tom Pye, the designer. And we made this opera, and it was a great success. And it was about a year to make, even though I was doing other things at the time, but we just worked and worked at this opera. So then I did Elegy for Young Lovers, which is the Hans Werner Henze opera. I went to see him in Rome, and then I came and did that for the English National Opera. And then Glyndebourne asked me to do The Rape of Lucretia. And I honestly think The Rape of Lucretia is one of the best things I've ever done in my life. I was so totally involved in it. It was in English, which does help if you're interested in language. The music, the situation of Britain and the moment of 1948, at the moment the opera was written, and the moment of what it's about, and I was making it in Glyndebourne, where the opera was written, had such a sort of powerful effect on me that I think it was the thing that I was most proud of. I subsequently did, I did The Marriage of Figaro, and I've done Cendrillon, but that was how I kind of wandered into it at the right time in my life, I think. And of course, adore it. I find it very, very hard to do, I must say. It's like jumping out of a plane without a parachute. That's what I think.
That's kind of it, exactly. And Lucretia is one of those operas that is, I guess, in a lot of ways, there's a lot of great source material that comes from it. This epic poem and Shakespeare, and that must be. Do you? How much do you when you think about opera? Do you prepare in terms of, do you love all that background, or is it more, what is it that speaks to you when you're tackling an opera for the first time?
I think the difference between art and the intellect is that, if you're looking at 10, 200 paintings and one of them catches your eye, that's the one that matters to you. And the wonderful thing, I just accepted what opera I was being given. I thought, Rape of Lucretia sounds dreadful. I don't like anything with the word rape in it. I'm not going to enjoy this. And you really can't get anywhere. And then you slowly begin to listen to it, and slowly the thing gets under your skin. And then slowly you begin to get images about the possibility. And I thought it's something to do with Rome and now. And maybe it's to do with archaeology. And I just been to Greece, actually, where underneath the new museum there, you can see the broken down walls of houses, which are often very small, underneath, right in the middle of Athens. And I thought maybe it's something to do with people living in that time and the chorus being in this time. But this time couldn't be this time. It had to be 1948 when the opera was written, because that was post-war. And mixing these two times with an archaeological shape was like a game. It was like a kid's game. I put the Romans in the houses, which were ruins, and the modern people on the walls looking at them. And of course, eventually the two worlds collapse. And that is something you can do in the theater that you could never do in any other art form. And I felt the thing was bigger than myself. I was excited that I was making this thing happen in a game that I had invented the rules of. But of course, art is the rule, and the rule. So I think that I just think that art is a great way of finding out about the world. And I certainly did with that. So I had a marvelous time.
I remember, just as you were speaking about that, I remember vividly the production photos. I wasn't able to see the production, but I remember the I guess it wasn't the sand, but the dirt. And yeah, it was vivid and it was exciting. And
well,
I think that's...
The chorus member, the male chorus, is digging up. And I thought he's digging up his memory of the war, of the of the Second World War. He's just digging. He's trying to kind of get rid of, he's probably having a nervous breakdown, which of course is not how it was written by Britain, which was just these two chorus members going, and this terrible text about Rome but it's a sort of mental verbiage that's coming out of him. And then you get to this beautiful passage where, of course, Lucretia and her group of ladies are weaving and spinning. And then you're into a completely calm, ordered space until Tokyo comes. And I just, maybe it was almost like a piece of embroidery. I really understood where everything should happen, because the music and the writing of it is so held and beautiful. All I had to do was not put a foot wrong. I just had to keep on following it. And of course, that's like a gift from God. Not all opera. I mean, The Marriage of Figaro is not like that. It's 5 acts and you think you're never going to get to the end of it.
Exactly. It's a bit longer, yeah, than Lucretia's for sure. And when you were approaching it, either opera, did you have any sense about they're going to compare this, or I have to do it a certain way to do opera, or was it just screw it, I'm going to dive into this, like you said, and treat it as art and just have not have fun with it, but sort of confidently just explore.
Well, in my training, I suppose, my ambition has always to make a piece of theatre that nobody has seen before.
Hmm.
I mean, this is an impossible thing to do. Peter Brook may have done it, and Peter Stein has done it maybe, and Robert Icke does it now. But there's Deborah Warner did it every now and then. You have to make these marks where you're making the form shift. I think painting probably has the same aesthetic need. Otherwise, you're copying and trying to find a form. Otherwise, you could just do things on two chairs and we could all just sing it out or make it better or decorate it. But it's where the design is not decoration, but the design is intrinsically part of the way in which the Rubik cube of the opera works. And that to me is the challenge for the, and of course I am not doing this myself. I'm doing it in a group which I love because I don't want to be the one who solves the opera. I want the group to throw in the ideas for my little mind to go, yes, I can feel that will work and that I can truly integrate it with myself. So I will use that. So a lot of the opera is not making the opera, you're making the context for the opera. And then, of course, the last bit, the bit where you're jumping out of the airplane without a parachute, is trying to make the opera quick enough to fit into this harnessed shape that you've made. And I don't believe in designer's opera. I don't believe in director's opera. I really believe in performer's opera, I suppose. But I'm trying to make it interesting enough so that the form itself enhances what they do. And um, for me, who's worked a lot in the theatre, it's in a way a busman's holiday because I'm not trying to compare myself to the great opera directors. I'm merely trying to get into that sandpit with them and say, well, I think the thing that I would be good at is helping the singers. And that is what I think I'm good at. And then, but for a year before, I've been working with this team of people who are really good at what they do. I think that's all I do.
Well, I guess, yeah, that thing too, that there's this within opera, there's been this thing about, that we don't, or the training of the theater side is not always being as equal as the music side. And as a performer yourself, it must be really encouraging for the performers to work with the director who probably understands where they're coming from the theater side of it.
The thing that I have both done well and have fallen foul of is that very thing, is that what I'm trying to do is get the singer to take responsibility for the part they play. Now, in the theatre, if you can do that, then, if I say I'm the Wizard of Oz, then I must be the Fiona Shaw Wizard of Oz. I can't just be a Wizard of Oz. I don't mean the Wizard of Oz must be like Fiona Shaw. I would mean that I must find a place where halfway between me and some mythic Wizard of Oz we meet, and then I can inhabit the Wizard of Oz. Opera singers are trained to have nothing to do with what they sing. So they can be different shapes or sizes, and that their own emotional life is not connected to what they sing, even though that singer has become a singer because somewhere, they deeply understand what music is. They are not cellos, they are people who sing. They are not violins, they are people who sing. It's the most wonderful instrument in the world because it has this soul behind it rather than a skill behind it that is, chemical there. And I had a fantastic time when you get good, young, and of course now the new generation of singers all want to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Listen self to what they sing. Sometimes on the Marriage of Figaro, where you've got 5 acts and you're trying to struggle with some singer, it's terribly difficult to get them to catch up to that point where they could take responsibility to either be the count or be the countess or they say, tell us where to stand and what to sing. And he, no, I cannot, because the fight between this husband and wife belongs to you two. This Figaro has to be a man who's a wide boy, but he really has to be your wide boy, not my wide boy, because I would sing it, play it, act it completely different to you. So this, I think, like all art, this takes time, and like all art, needs the money to pay for the time that allows the people to get to the point where they can fuse with what they do. That's been my aim.
No, that resonates deeply. This idea of, when learning about opera and how you'd hear about these people who could jump into a performance and with a day's notice step in. It's good that that can happen, but as soon as you kind of treat that as the norm, you're taking away, yeah, I think the richness of
I think it
rehearsals.
can happen, and it clearly happens, and I've seen it happen, and I'm stunned when you see these, international opera singers fly down from a helicopter, do the thing, make you weep and fall apart, and then they go way off in the helicopter. But I think it holds the world of opera back, not the, I'm not going to name opera, the giant opera houses where the helicopters come in on the roof and they come in down, they sing and they go out. But the nature of opera must shift with the nature of time. Of course, now at the moment, we're meeting race as being the huge issue
Mhm.
for a culture. And it's a very good moment because hopefully opera, if it's worth anything, and I believe it is, will come down from its kingly, courtly associations and begin to join us in the street and in the other histories of other groups. And then, if it's really good, it will be able to find its way and be enwrapped by the new culture, which is just emerging. And weirdly, COVID is part of the emergence because the racial inequality has been heightened by COVID, hasn't it? And
Yes.
hopefully, the racial equality will be the outcome of it in music and all these art forms that have been held too high, and they've got caught too high, partially because of the economics and power. But they don't need to be there at all. They can be down here with us.
Well, that's, again, you've touched on something that I've heard from a lot of people as well. And to be able to have that time to listen to what's going on in the world is very important and powerful. And hopefully, like you said, will lead to change and lead to inclusion and lead to equity, which is hopefully what we all want as well. Um, One thing that obviously has happened in the last 6 months is in the shutdowns that we've seen across the world is there's been a big trend and a big focus of things going online. And when you think of opera, you don't necessarily think of it being online and in a sort of uh, production space in terms of television or film. And I guess what can opera learn from television and film from someone who's obviously done quite a lot of it in your career as well? Is there anything that we can learn, and should opera even fit in that realm?
I mean, I'm going to go roundabout and answer your question by saying, there's a huge challenge. The thing that opera does is exactly what musicals do. Musicals took over from opera and they do it with a microphone. And the miracle of opera is it does it without a microphone.
Yeah.
But of course, the moment you get to a screen, you will have, in some way, some two-dimensional image, as we have of each other now, and somewhere two-dimensional sound, no matter how beautiful the singer is and how great it is. So, Whitney Houston can be the greatest popular singer in the world because her voice was able to soar. And opera is doing something just near that, but different. And, I think probably the screen opera is a fantastic tool for an aging population, of which I'm going to be a part of. Is that, I've enjoyed the operas on screen because I've caught up with things I missed and hadn't got to or couldn't get to New York to see, or, I'm thrilled that opera. But nothing is like the experience of being in the same room as a person who is like me, but is a god. I mean, that's what opera singers are. They have this God given ability to do something that I could never even hope to do. And yet I am part of the same species as these people. That is the basic enhancement is incredible. That I can go, I'm like that person, just not able to sing like that. And, and and something about this, the curtain between metaphysics and us, between heaven and hell, between heaven and earth, is in the singer. The singer can do something that should be impossible. I think probably so can high jumpers, and probably people interested in American football will probably say the same about certain fellows who can run or certain batsmen who can bat. But it is incredible when the human enterprise goes way beyond your own capability. because somehow we meet the universe at that point. And so, but I do think it's a great, valuable tool on screen, but I don't think the future of opera will be only on screen. But there may have been something we haven't been using enough. Maybe there's more of it should be on screen.
Yeah, and that's probably what we've been hearing and thinking about is that there's maybe new, I don't want to say new art forms, but
Yeah,
how it can be used and how musicals developed for film and how
and popular music, popular music, which is also from the thread of history down through how people feel, what they're saying must be threaded into opera. And there's no reason why it should be just modern or contemporary, rather, operas written with whatever is the influence of. It could be embedded into Mozart. I think he would love that. You
yeah.
know, I don't believe that the great popular writers, I don't know, Strauss operas, you could build in a hell of a lot more if you deconstructed these operas. Now I know there's a musical mathematical format that holds tight, but I think the future is in breaking that.
Oh my goodness, we are kindred spirits because that's exactly what I believe as well. It's kind of, if Mozart were around today, I don't think he would be playing the music that he wrote 250 years ago, but he would want to use every tool he
Back
could.
five and put in Tina Turner. I mean, I don't think he'd mind it. Really. I mean, he might, but it doesn't matter. He doesn't. He is not the he who minds. He doesn't exist.
No, no, exactly. Oh, that's some good stuff as well. I was gonna, the next thing I was gonna ask was, have you engaged in any opera or virtual concerts, which you kind of said you have, and um, I think it's predictable to say what that experience has kind of been, but how have you felt? Has it been a? I guess you said it was a good thing because you could catch up on things, but
In honesty, you get. I think the screen you get bored in under the hour. I don't think you stay for the 3 hours. So that thing of
yeah,
being caught by the throat by Othello or something, you can't quite get on the screen, I think, yet, no matter how it could be the world best production. So I'm slightly watching as a busman's holiday in that I'm enjoying watching that's interesting. In Act Two, they did this and that, but I'm not in the thing in the way that I would be. Um, Dance, I've also enjoyed watching, but I think opera it needs, yeah, I mean, it's alive. It's alive. The, our problem, those of us who love opera and wanted to survive, is that we must keep the singers' hearts high enough to make it worth their while to please stay practicing until a time comes when we can come out of the situation. But that could be 2 years, and I don't say that with a light heart. It could be 2 years. How could you keep a singer going for 2 years when 2 years of life will have gone by and they're singing in their sitting rooms? But I beg them, please keep singing in your sitting room. Please do some duets with somebody on a webinar. Just keep it going so that we can again be in the same room eventually.
well, that's kind of it too. It's a heartbreaking, really heartbreaking and heavy to think of so many singers, so many technicians, so many actors who can't be doing what they were trained to do. And that's the thing. It's kind of, I think it was the Metropolitan Opera last week who announced that they're not at least doing performances until next September, which is a year from now, and it's been 6 months already. That's a long time of not playing together, not really doing what we do.
And they do what they do. When I was about a few years ago, my friend Deborah Warner was not able to do her Eugene Onegin at the Metropolitan Opera in New York. So I was asked would I take over because I knew I'd worked with Deborah so often. They felt that I would have some of her, only some, but I mean a glimmer of her ability. So I went to take over this opera. She had done it in London in English, so I was able to learn it in English. I speak no Russian, so I tried to learn the Russian version. I mean, cramming. Of course, there were piles of brilliant people that met. There were people there too. There were about 3 translators. I was there, and Anna Netrebko was, of course, singing. And when we were rehearsing, I couldn't get over Anna, who is a glorious person as well as a beautiful opera singer. She would
Mm-hmm.
say, can I do it well? If I do it really well, can I go off and go shopping? I was like, what? I'm going to rehearse all day and we're going to find this out. And she just did. So then she would do it beyond incandescently well. I mean, the whole thing, acting, singing, the whole thing. And she would go. But one night we were invited by some friends across the street who lived across the street, who often invited the singers over. And and at the end of the dinner, she and some of the Russian cast, who she knew very well, they began to sing just for the fun of it. And I can't tell you, my head was spinning. These had already rehearsed all day, then they'd gone shopping, then they had dinner, and then they sang because it's what they are, who they are, how they want to be. And I think this sort of loss, we weren't on a boat one night. Anna wanted us all to go out in a boat. So we were in one of those boats, it goes around goes around Manhattan, or it goes around, kind of around, and you have drinks and everything. And somebody was on the boat whose birthday it was, and they were all singing "Happy Birthday to You." And Anna steps in and starts, "Happy Birthday to us," and they were kind of going, "Who's this woman interrupting?" I just said, "This is the greatest opera singer in the world."
Yeah.
And it's this unstoppable joy of what singing is. That is the essence. But I mean, that was my experience of liveness and incidentalness that goes on the edge of our lives that we're all missing now.
Yeah, and I guess that's it too. Is kind of some of us, I'm not one of them, but some of them need or just have those innate skills and where they are a singer and they always will be. And it's really, I think this time has been really hard on those people because I don't know if it's brought in doubt, but it's the doubt of when they'll be able to come back and do what they do. But like you said, do it in your living room, do it on the street, do it anywhere you can. Yeah.
Just don't, we're waiting to hear you again. It was all you could say to them. And I'm very
Yeah.
sorry for the young singers who are just coming out of singing, coming out of singing colleges, who are ready and need the practice to be given those roles. They really are in a terrible situation because they need practice. You need to get that muscle up in front of an audience. That's very hard.
Yeah, exactly. All those, you're very in tune with all of this. It's that's kind of it because it's those ones who are in school now who are learning virtually how to do this, which has got to be an incredible challenge. And you really have to want to do this, I think, which is, yeah, gets into passion and skill. Yeah.
You have to do it in front of an audience. I mean, an audience is the other part of your song, in a way. It's the other part of the aria is the audience who, when you're breathing in, they're moving with you. When you breathe out and when you give them what for, they move back because they are being blown away. And that is affecting the singer. It is absolutely a movement between
Yeah.
two people.
As a performer, is that why you would balance lots of different by not strictly doing film or television, which doesn't necessarily have that audience, with live theater and
Well, it just so happens that I got involved with a TV series called Killing Eve, just as I was doing Cendrillon at Glyndebourne. And because I was long since, oh no, well, sorry, I was doing Medea at, uh, at, um, at the Wexford Festival. And so I had to take a few weeks out. I'd already prepared it, but I had to do a few weeks out and commute between Wexford and London to
wow.
do Killing Eve and this huge and very difficult Medea because it's all full of broken up bits of writing that was very hard to unify. And I was beyond exhausted at the end of it. The following year, I had, as it happened, long before I agreed to do Killing Eve, I had agreed to do Cendrillon at Glyndebourne. So I again begged the producers to give me the time off, even though I'd already prepared it to go down and do the productions. And even on the opening night of Cendrillon, I had to go and do 4 hours filming and then come back up. I mean, I had
Oh.
a nightmare. And I was exhausted. So subsequently, I said, until the series finishes, I won't do any operas. Now, I wasn't anticipating this terrible COVID. So as it happens, I am not slated for any operas for the moment because I think my heart, I'm glad because my heart would have broken if I was halfway through. There's nothing worse than preparing something and not being ready. So as it happens, I'm not in the opera. I'm not making an opera this minute.
Yeah, but I guess to commit to that schedule that you did between Wexford, you must do it because you love it. Yeah.
I did it because, of course, most people come up to me in the street saying, we enjoy you in the TV series. And of course you think, yes, but most of my energy has gone into making this opera. most of my soul, most of my sleepless nights about worry, most of my inadequacy. And maybe there's something wonderful about operas that you're putting a mountain range in front of yourself and you say, now climb that, in bare feet. It feels like that, but it is full of, full of highs and full of despair, but it's almost impossible to put on an opera in a way. I'm thrilled that I've done the ones I've done. I don't know if I'll ever do any more, but I have enjoyed doing them. And I've sometimes been humiliated by them. It's very, very hard to get right.
No, exactly. It's a tricky thing, and you're putting it out there, and
Oh, and when you're doing Cendrillon and everybody's singing, a chorus in French, but all singing slightly different things, and and there isn't time. It's time to say, look, I think when you're singing this, you mean this, and when you're singing this, you mean this, and it's very, very hard. And you're so grateful to performers who can sometimes take the interpretation, of some small fellow who's playing the servant on the left, but who sings his bit with an individual turn. You are just in heaven when they take some of the responsibility for that themselves.
oh, absolutely. You mentioned Killing Eve, which stars a Canadian as well. Go, oh Canada as well. And some of your scenes have had, I've been able to notice, have had opera in them. And is that your choice? Is that, yeah.
It was initially my choice. I was called in last year and asked, what do you want to put in the season? I said, I want to put modern opera in.
Huh.
So I said it has to be contemporary opera. I don't think Carolyn, i.e. me, has any interest in, there's no point in putting, I don't want bits of Rosencavalier. I mean, I don't mean anything about Rosencavalier. I just thought, do not, and also I thought it was an opportunity to educate an audience into things that were not known, not the anthemic, you know, famous bits of from opera, because we go on hearing those and people think, oh yeah, that's opera. And they don't realize there's Shakespearean tomes of operas that people could get on their popular ear. There's so much tune. So I hummed a bit of Lucretia in one scene, and I insisted that they use that because I thought this is a woman saying goodbye to her son who she'll never see again. And it's a bit like lovers parting. And so I thought that would be a nice thing to put it in. Then there's another bit where I was inviting this fellow for a walk, and they put in a whole bit of just opera. They just put in classical music. And then I was in a car, and I really wanted it to be more of the Lucretia, but they put in Dido and Aeneas. And you can't blame them, but I wish I had been more present. I would have insisted it was at least as no earlier than Poulenc or something. But they didn't. They put in something because the ear is retrospective. We are quite conservative in our ears, and I think we shouldn't be, but it would be a very brave producer who would allow the ear to be tuned forward.
Well, and that's kind of it. It's good on you for at least
Sorry.
sort of saying that this has to be in it, because that's the thing. I think when we listen to it very, I don't want to say passively, but music can influence so much of the dramatic that we're watching. And yeah, to have that sort of intentional, it needs to happen more. I think this not that opera is this odd thing that niche people may understand, but I believe it could be part of our mainstream thinking.
And it should be played on radio that has popular music on in the same moment, because it's little captures of moments of the breath of a moment where something went wrong in a love affair, or you have a peculiar feeling that's not black or white but grey. And opera is full of these little moments, like Shakespeare is. And we need something that somebody who says, I captured that moment, and here it is. I don't know whether it's it doesn't have to be anthemic. And I'm just little odd moments of opera. And if you got them on the ear, then you could hear other odd moments. We all have to learn it. I mean, I have to learn, Benjamin Britten. You have to learn it, and then you can't. It sounds as popular as the number one song at the time. It just sounds absolutely the experience. It's not academic. It's emotional.
Oh, that's it exactly. Yeah, you have to feel it, and once you give time and space, and it doesn't mean you have to listen to the 5 hour opera. It can take as little as 2 minutes to kind of, and And that's what it does on the show. Even in that car scene, I remember that now. It's cutting even if it's not the choice that you that you wanted in there. It's still very effective.
Yes, at least in. Yeah.
If you could be an opera singer, is there one an opera that you'd love to be in, or a role that?
I mean, I, yes, I mean, I've always had a hankering. I mean, no, probably I won't say a very sophisticated thing, but I think one of the great scenes ever written is Act Two of the Marriage of Figaro. I do think that the Count's row with the Countessa, and you know, I think it's just marvelous. I also think that I think the duet when Carabino comes in, and he's been found. These things are thrilling, and I suppose if I could sing, I'd love to be able to do those things because they're like sort of gymnastics, aren't they?
Oh,
But
they
I
are,
think
and
the contests are really going on in many, many households, many apartments, in Toronto to Vancouver. I think these scenes are going on all the time. And in an amazing way, Mozart's able to make those moments that should be kind of violent and a bit cross, a bit upsetting, incredibly enjoyable. That's the sort of redemption about our ability to hurt each other that you could also make it quite funny and really beautiful.
well, that's kind of it in a piece like Figaro, like you just described. That in Act Two, the Figaro and the Countess, when they're just going at each other back and forth, it's
It's
so human.
breathtaking, and it keeps stopping, and then it starts again. I mean, it's just got full of those, syncopated, disastrous moments that we've all lived through. But it's when you watch it, your heart beats. It races.
Oh my goodness, I can't imagine what that could look like if you played the Countess, and hopefully maybe one day we partly I believe that we have to kind of lose this, or kind of get rid of this idea of perfection. I don't think Mozart necessarily wrote it that way. He did not want every note to be as perfect and recreated. He wanted it to live and be alive, and so hopefully out of this there can come this desire to kind of get out of the glass tower and kind of come back to the people as well.
I agree, and it may be that we've trained our singers and our musicians and our conductors almost too well. If we were on some desert island and we had a group of people and we happened to have the score for Figaro, maybe we'd all just cast each other and we'd have a good go at it. Now I know, the purists would say that's a waste of time. It isn't.
No,
No, because
no.
the human in the music, and even if you've got the odd note flat, it doesn't matter. It's in the essence of the organization of the way in which the music flows is something about us. And I agree.
Just that passion, and my goodness, even just from speaking with you now, you can see it, you can feel it, and I'm sure you've had a very long and busy day. So it's such a joy to see you and to hear you talk about this.
Thank you for inviting me, Joe. It's been a great pleasure to talk to you about my other passions.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully that those will continue, and knowing that you have a little break of opera, maybe any producers out there,
Yeah.
let's get Fiona
Get me
back.
to Canada. Get me to Canada. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get you to Canada, knowing it's been a while. I think you were raving, I don't know if you said this on this, but you were raving about Winnipeg, which is a beautiful place you spent time at.
Wonderful. I think Winnipeg is a marvelous place, and I really enjoyed being there. The people were so nice, the space is so nice, and these wonderful young families who have begun to live there. There's a lot of prams. There's a lot of prams and pushing a pram. It's a great place, and a lot of
Wonderful.
native people who are just singing beautifully, acting beautifully, entertaining us. It was just wonderful, wonderful. First Nation people. I enjoyed so much the whole thing.
Oh, thank you. Well, yes, we will get you back, and we will also get back our opera singers and our film and television industry. It's all going to come back, and we just have to stick on doing it. So thank you so much for coming and doing this, and hope to talk to you and see you again soon.
Thank you, Joe, for having me. I'm very
Thank
honored.
you.
Bye bye.